Christopher Nolan is one of my absolute favorite directors. Whenever he puts out a new movie, whether you love it or not, you know you're going to get something interesting. And this week, Tenet was finally released in the United States. So today I'm going to stop and rank all 11 Christopher Nolan movies from the worst to the best. Hi, my name is Sean, and I started this channel because I was driving everyone around me crazy talking about movies way too much. If you can relate, you're probably in the right place and consider clicking that subscribe button. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your ranking of Christopher Nolan's films. My list is not the right list. It's just my list, and I would love to see yours and have a nice, lively discussion about what we love and maybe don't love about some of his films. One more thing before we get started. Leading up to the release of Tenet, I did a review series of Christopher Nolan's films, so if you want to know more deeper thoughts on any of these films, check out this playlist right up here, and let's get started. Coming in last place is The Dark Knight Rises. Christopher Nolan's ambitious conclusion to his Dark Knight trilogy ups the size, the scope, the scale of the story, but at the same time, I think it sacrificed credibility in an effort to do that. On the one hand, I very much appreciate the grandeur of the story, the way that it's shot to just make everything look so big. I actually really enjoyed Tom Hardy's very weird version of Bane in the film, and when it needs to have emotional punch, it has some great moments that just hit you right in the gut. But for me, this is probably Christopher Nolan's sloppiest script that makes all of the screenwriting and storytelling mistakes that Nolan is normally known for not making. The plot relies on coincidence and contrivances to kind of tie all these plot lines together. It gets very cartoonish at times, and in order to set up these big emotional payoffs and epic moments, it feels like it's trying to force the pieces together where it came so naturally in the previous two entries in this franchise. At its core, I think the entire film is built on a faulty premise, and that's that Christopher Nolan's version of Bruce Wayne doesn't want to be Batman. Therefore, he retired at the end of the last film, and so he becomes Batman for 45 minutes. They do the Nightfall storyline, so his back is broken, so he stops being Batman for the next 45 minutes in the film, only to become Batman one more time. And so you have this epic Batman movie with very little Batman in it, and a version of the character that just does not resemble the comic book character in a film that has too many plot holes and contrivances. So while I do enjoy the film, it's a frustrating watch. At number 10, unfortunately, is Tenet. I went into this film with sky-high expectations because naturally it was a Nolan film, it was a spy film, it involved trippy time stuff. All of that sounded amazing to me, and in many ways, it delivered on the promise of that premise. You get a whole bunch of Christopher Nolan spy sequences, you get the globe-trotting, you get wacky, crazy, time-bending stuff, but watching the movie itself was a very frustrating experience because the movie was unnecessarily confusing. At its core, you have this idea about time moving backwards, and that inherently will make your brain work extra hard to have both timelines running through your head trying to put it all together. And that's a good thing. The problem is the main plot line, the spy stuff itself, was far too difficult to follow. At its core, it's basically just a Bond film, but the way that it's told, at the pace at which it moves, characters aren't really introduced. You don't know their motives. You're not sure exactly why they need to go to this location to get that thing. Therefore, you're constantly playing catch up. And then they start incorporating all these backwards moving time elements that just doubles the amount of processing that you need to do. So I felt from the very beginning of the film, I was playing catch up. I really have no idea how well this movie will age with me on second and third viewings, but based off the initial viewing, I just don't understand why Nolan made this movie so inaccessible for the wrong reasons. Number 9, following Christopher Nolan's micro-budget debut, is a perfect example of an early talent experimenting with all the stuff that he would later perfect. At its core, you have a simple story with not a lot of characters about this person that likes to watch people and then gets wrapped up into this world of breaking into their homes. And it's told in a non-linear style in a way that creates a scenario where you're introduced to these images and these characters at different points in time. And as you go through it, it slowly reveals new information that makes you interpret what you saw before in a different way. All of this is basically a prototype for what he perfected in the movie Memento, but it's used to interesting effect here with a much simpler story. Now, granted, of his films, it's the least ambitious. It's black and white. Some of the audio is not quite as clear as maybe it otherwise would have been. So there's certainly a number of limitations on the film. But in another way, it's like listening to the demo version of a great song. It's not quite there yet. The production's not quite to where it will be later on, but you can see all the potential and appreciate it for what it is, even in this early form. Next up is The Prestige. This is a Christopher Nolan film that I've slowly learned to appreciate more and more as time has passed. I know a lot of you, this is one of your top 3 favorite Christopher Nolan films, and you think the final twist in it is maybe his best yet. I've never really had that experience with this film, especially not the first time I watched it, but with each viewing, I slowly learned to appreciate more and more what Christopher Nolan was doing with the film in using magic and illusions as sort of a metaphor for the filmmaking process and trying to tell a story that follows the template of the magic tricks inside of the film while having this very layered Christopher Nolan story with multiple timelines and intersecting plot lines all throughout it. Now, I think the thing that's always held me back with the film is that at its core, it's about this rivalry between these two characters, and at the end of the day, neither one of them are good guys. There's a lot of mean-spirited elements to it. It's an entirely toxic rivalry, so you can't really root for either one of these characters. You just watch them become more and more destructive in a way that messes up everyone around them. And at the core of magic, so much of it is awe and wonder and childish excitement. And so when you tell a story that can be so mean-spirited that's about something that's so joy-inducing, it's always felt a little bit off to me that we didn't have that sense of joy and fun and wonder with this film a bit more. Number 7 is Interstellar, a film that has some of Christopher Nolan's best directed sequences, whether you're on the edge of your seat or just having gut punch emotional moments in it. And then at the same time, it also has some of his most self-indulgent sequences as well. At its core, what I love about this film is that it's just a commitment to old school sci-fi with practical effects, model work, and just grand, big, cinematic visuals. And then beyond that, sometimes Nolan is criticized for being maybe an emotionless director, and you have that sequence where Matthew McConaughey gets back from the water planet and gets the video from his children, and it is just gut-wrenching. And then the rescue when they're getting off the planet with our cameo guest character, and they're going to the space station that's spinning, and Matthew McConaughey is having to like balance the two out while there's amazing Hans Zimmer scores just swelling. Powerful stuff. And then as you kind of move into the third act twist and you kind of understand what's been going on, I don't know that it fully lands for me. It doesn't spoil the movie at all, but I just don't know that I fully buy into what he was going for. You can just feel him trying to force that big, powerful third act, and he doesn't quite get there as well as you want him to. So still a movie that I think delivers on some big emotion, some great thrills, amazing visuals, maybe doesn't quite land the ship fully in the third act. Then we have Insomnia, in a lot of ways the most conventional Christopher Nolan film, and because of that, it's kind of his forgotten film. After he did Memento, he caught the attention of the various studios and got brought on to make this film to show that he could do a big studio film with Al Pacino and Robin Williams as the stars of the film. And because of that, it's a fairly straightforward murder investigation. It's actually a remake of a foreign film, and Christopher Nolan isn't even the credited screenwriter on the film, in which case, in a lot of ways, it doesn't have many of his distinctive elements. There's not like a big idea that's being explored. It's told in a linear structure, but that doesn't change the fact that it's a solid murder investigation film with two amazing performances from Al Pacino and Robin Williams. Then at its core, it just has a lot of interesting kind of exploration of corruption and the ways that one small choice can set you down a path that leads you to making more and more corrupt choices. And then you also have Hilary Swank as kind of this third plot line in it as this naive cop that has no experience really investigating a real serious crime. And through this, she kind of discovers her potential and the need to do the right thing. And so while it doesn't have all the novelty and bonkers ideas that you expect for Christopher Nolan, this was him showing the studios that he can direct a studio film with excellence, and he did that here. In fifth place is Dunkirk, Christopher Nolan's take on a war film. Absolutely works for me. Some people criticize this film for having emotionally distant characters that don't have a lot of depth. That has never bothered me about this film. What I love about it is that it's designed to be immersive, to put you on that beachfront, to put you on the ships, in the plane. And because of that, it's a very brisk film, but you constantly feel the urgency of it because of the layered timelines. When it came to that being on the beach, they were just waiting to die for a week. And you feel that while you're watching the movie. And at the same time, while you're on the little boat with the family, just trying to do the right thing, you feel the urgency of we've got to get there in time before it's too late. And because they're at different time periods, but we're watching them at the same time, this is a very interesting way that you experience the emotion of the rescue at Dunkirk. Add to that, I just love the way that the father was written in it. He's not really designed to be this big hero. He's just a guy that felt a responsibility to help the soldiers on that beach. And once again, going back to what this movie is all about, is just putting you present in the battle and seeing it the way that they saw it. And I think it does a great job of that. Number 4 is Batman Begins. Of all the films on this list, this is the one that by far I have watched the most times. I love origin stories, stories of becoming. I love Batman and I love Christopher Nolan. So when you combine those three things together, you have kind of like the perfect movie designed for me. And it's executed so well as we watch Bruce Wayne kind of travel the world, gaining a set of skills, returning to Gotham. By having it non-linear, we can go back and see what led him to go on that path and explore the Bruce Wayne character himself better than had been explored in previous Batman movies. Or kind of gets held back just a little bit for me because I very frequently go back and forth in my mind as to what do I like, this one or the Dark Knight more, is that you kind of get to a point in time where he becomes Batman and he captures Falcone on the dock. Everything was about him becoming Batman and getting this guy that was behind so much stuff. So that happens, and then the movie kind of has to reshuffle for a little bit, and we realize, oh, the real plot is about Ra's al Ghul. And so there's some structurally some stuff that I think needed to be ironed out a little bit more. And then it's an action movie. And the action here simply isn't very good. He chose to shoot it like from the perspective of the criminals, and so then it's chopped to pieces. You just see like fists flying everywhere. It's in close up. It's an action movie. I just think the direction that Nolan took for all of that could have been and should have been better in this movie that otherwise is awesome and fantastic. Real quick before I give you my top 3, remember to share your ranking down below in the comment section. My list is not the right list. It's just my list, and I would love to see yours. And I know you're Nolan fans, so you've got all kinds of strong opinions on these films. Also, remember, I did that movie review series of Nolan's films right up here. So if you disagree with on some of these films, check out my full review. I elaborate on what I loved about certain movies and what I didn't like about them, and you can see all of that right up here. In third place is Memento. This is an incredibly important film for me because it's one of the first indie films that I saw in the theater, and it kind of, like many people, blew my mind as I realized, wow, you can do incredible stuff with movies that doesn't require CGI spectacle and explosions. This is also a great example of how you take a character and a concept and intertwine it so well with the storytelling. You know, at its core, the movie is told in reverse, and it has a very specific story that you can only tell with this character. The story doesn't work if you tell it linear. It doesn't make any sense. And Nolan understood all of the amazing storytelling possibilities that you could do by telling a story in reverse. So it has all of these reverse cliffhangers where you start a scene with something weird and bizarre happening where you're like, how did we get here? So when it reverses, you get that answer later on, and it takes this movie telling cliche of the cliffhanger and turns it on its head in this very interesting fashion. And because of, once again, the nature of all of this, the movie has this scenario where we're constantly reinterpreting everything that we've seen, which is the exact experience that the character would be in. Once again, Nolan's brilliance of understanding how do you take the audience and put them in the perspective of this character that cannot make new memories, all of it leading to the final scene of the movie where you understand what's going on, and it's one of the great twist reveals in cinema history that was perfect for this story, for this character, in this form of storytelling. It's satisfying, it's earned, it makes sense when you rewatch it a second time, and it's an incredible achievement in cinema. Our runner-up is The Dark Knight. This film wonderfully builds on the foundation that Batman Begins laid. In the first film, we're introduced to the characters and this concept of what if you took this fantastical character that is Batman and put him in a more grounded world, and it takes that concept to the next level. It takes inspiration not so much from the comic book movie genre, but from all of these classic crime thrillers, whether you're talking about Heat or the TV show The Wire, and it incorporates this great character into that genre. It takes the character seriously and tells a compelling narrative for adults, even though it's about a guy dressed as a bat. Beyond that, you bring into it Heath Ledger's version of the Joker, which is this wonderful counterbalance to Christian Bale's version of Batman, as he is this agent of chaos, but at the same time, he has these wonderful master plans that are well thought out. And part of the brilliance of Heath Ledger's Joker just disappeared into this role as this psychopath that in every scene you felt the danger, but there was always still a little bit of fun thrown into the mix as well. Adding to that, Christopher Nolan decided to just make the movie feel bigger and filmed on real locations in a real city, so Gotham feels like a character in the film. Put it all together and you just get this grand, epic comic book film that in many ways transcends the genre. Now, I'm not in the category that thinks that this is a flawless masterpiece, but it is a fantastic film. But coming in first place is Inception. For me, this is Christopher Nolan's masterpiece where he came up with this big, ambitious concept about dreams, and then he found this way to make it highly accessible by making it a heist film. It delivers all the fun, spectacle, and action set pieces that you want from a big blockbuster while never dumbing it down or assuming that the audience can't follow along. It's a movie that has an incredibly complex set of rules, and it requires a ton of world building for the audience to be able to track along, but Nolan manages to find a way to deliver the enormous amount of exposition in a way that's still fun. Adding to that, it's a film where Christopher Nolan delivered some of his best action by thinking through what are all the crazy possibilities that you could do with this dream scenario. And while it has these big, lofty ideas, deeply layered storytelling, at its core, it also is a story about a man, and the story about this man has intrigue and mystery surrounding it, where you care about what went on with him and his wife, why can't he see his kids, and reveals information about this mystery, all leading up to the finale of the film. To me, this is classic Nolan. It's complex. It has big, gigantic ideas, but it's also a wonderfully crafted script that can have multiple interpretations. And at the end of the day, if you're debating it with your friends, each one of you on both sides of the debate as to what exactly happened in the movie have plenty of evidence. That's the brilliance of Nolan. That's the brilliance of this film. And that's why, for me, without question, it comes in at number 1. If you've enjoyed this video, remember I got a whole series of reviews right over there. I reviewed almost all of his films before doing this video. You can check them out right over there if you want more of my thoughts on any of these films. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.